What's poppin', my good people? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about the Skillet album Comatose. Comatose is a fan favorite Skillet album, and it has that one song that's pretty popular on it. I don't remember the name of the song exactly. Here it is. It's showing up on the screen. It's magically, here it is. That's the name of the song. Back before I did this YouTube channel thing, I would review albums and just write them down on paper. I had like five notebooks full of album reviews, and that's where that my list comes from in the bottom in the description of my videos. All of those albums are things that I've reviewed on paper, or stuff that I've reviewed on the channel already. But it was just, so that's how I reviewed albums, and I was going through the Skillet albums, and I remember really not liking Comatose. And then going online and discovering that the fan base really loves this album. This is in the fans' eyes either their best album or definitely one of their best albums. And listening to it now, I still don't love it. A lot of the issues I have with this album and in the music really just come from it being a very noticeable product of its time period. Like the ballads on this album has ballads, just like Unleashed. The ballads on this thing are Yours to Hold, and you have some dramatic, slow flair on The Last Night and Say Goodbye. Just don't land for me musically. Like, even if there is emotive lyrics, and I would say lyrically this is a much darker, much more mature album than Unleashed. I'm comparing it to Unleashed because that's the one that I just reviewed. I'll link that in the description. But these moments of sincerity just, in their melodrama, don't feel that sincere. Because I feel like even though they are trying to be like a little more stripped back, they're still overproduced. And just the delivery of these vocals doesn't really, even if they are emotive, they just don't they're just not really, it's not selling it for me. The strings on the title track and that back and forth chorus, I don't want to breathe, I don't want to, it just hasn't aged well in my opinion. I can imagine this being popular and this making sense in the decade that this was released in, the middle of the 2000s for rock music. And something else, something that is a very unfortunate callback to Linkin Park, the talk-sung, rapped vocals on Looking for Angels, and the very blunt way it's dealing with this very serious lyrical subject matter, it just hasn't aged well. It doesn't sound good. Fortunately, there are some moments on this album that do go over pretty well for me. One of the biggest is the first track, Rebirthing. Those female vocals coming in this chorus, the build up to that chorus, that bombastic just sound and energy. It really is. Skillet is usually at their best, and I feel like this applies to all of their albums, when they are just going for that more straightforward and just high energy rock music, instead of trying to make it these emotive lyrics and ballads and all that stuff. I don't think it just suits them as well. Another highlight is Better Than Drugs, and while I could see a criticism of the lyrics on this one being kind of corny, talking about how it's a Christian song and it's talking about drugs. It's kind of this fake, them trying to be angsty kind of deal. But the chorus on this one goes over very well. So it's kind of a fun song. Those Nights is a song that really shouldn't work very well. It just banks super heavy on nostalgia and remember those nights, and not without being extremely specific. And it's something that anybody can like and get behind. And it is different for Skillet to be doing this. It's more of a pop punk or kind of pop rock than just straightforward hard rock. But it personally works pretty well for me. The sentimental lyrics, I think, actually do go over well enough. Falling Inside the Black works because of that chorus and that kind of abrasive music. And then Whispers in the Dark is a huge highlight with just this amazing hook. Just this, oh man, it hits, bro. This is a rock song that you feel. And it is one of their biggest songs that they've ever made, and I believe it's the biggest song on this album. And I vibe with it. Whispers in the Dark, turn up. It's a good song. And with that, I actually have addressed by name every single song on this album. So I'm running out of things to say, which is not a bad thing. But I hope you can understand my thoughts, because if you're a hardcore fan of this album, I hope you can understand my criticisms, because I don't love this album. And I'm going to give it the same score I gave Unleashed. Spoiler alert for that one if you haven't watched it. 3 out of 5. Comatose is a 3 out of 5, boys. Yeah, I just think that like half the album doesn't play over that well. And the reason I'm not being more critical is because lyrically, I think this album, and even musically, it's a lot more adventurous than Unleashed. And I think it's a lot more lyrically just more dense and meaningful, and like more, it's much more well written than Unleashed. Even though I don't really like many of the, like half the songs I don't even like. I just think that it legitimately is like a well written album for the most part, and musically adventurous, and I actually do like a few of the songs, but I don't know. I don't know if a 3 out of 5 makes sense. I feel like how negative this review is, I should give it lower, but at the same time I don't want to give it a worse score than Unleashed, because I do think this is like a higher quality album than that. I think this is more well written specifically, and just better in certain ways. But at the same time, I prefer Unleashed. Sorry. Thanks for watching the video. Have a great rest of your day.